Hello, all, and welcome to Shakira's Corner, where we discuss pertinent agenda items from the Board of Commissioners meetings with Commissioner Chakira Johnson, as well as share community updates from DeKalb County District 4. In addition to serving on the BOC, Commissioner Johnson also is a member of the Finance, Audit, and Budget, better known as FAB Committee, the Employee Relations and Public Safety, better known as ERPS Committee, and the Public Works and Infrastructure, better known as PWI Committee. We're here today to talk about some of the items that have come up on the agendas of the BOC meetings for the month of February 2025. And of course, we're here with the Commissioner herself. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing.
We had a very busy February, so
Yes, we did. We do have quite a few things to talk about. So, in our last podcast, if you were able to catch it, Commissioner Johnson here was telling us a little bit more about the water rate increase and the budget that we're coming at, the decisions that needed to be made in the BOC meetings during the month of February. So, we're going to touch base on those now, starting with the budget, since the water rate approval was included in that. We'll get to that as we're discussing some of the budget items.
yes. So we can touch on our marathon meeting. We had a marathon voting meeting on February 25th, 2025, where we went from 9 a.m. to about 5:30 p.m. with just one hour break, and it was all the voting meetings. So typically our voting meetings, they start at 9 a.m. and they go to about noonish, maybe 2 o'clock for some later ones, and then after that we'll have committee meetings, but this day it was all voting meeting. But we took care of a lot of business on the 25th, February 25th. So we approved the CEO's proposed budget as with some added amendments requested by the BOC, as well as our constitutional officers, to include the sheriff, the state and state and local judges, tax commissioner, tax assessor, etc. So that approved budget at this time is roughly $1.9 billion. As a member of the FAB committee kind of reviews the budget. Here's all the additional budget requests that come in, makes the a recommendation for approval or denial. But our recommendation was to approve to the full BOC, and then the full BOC took that action on February 25th. In addition to the approval of the proposed budget, FAB committee is also requesting to receive at least quarterly financial updates from the administration. We made that request in our FAB meeting earlier this week. And so we should be able to report on that in our next podcast, as well as if there's anticipated to revisit some items that were not included in the budget in the next couple meetings. So we should have some budget updates ready for our next podcast. If we want to roll into the water rate increases, which also was approved on February 25th. Well, I'll start with, we intentionally, as the BOC, we intentionally passed the water protection resolution first, which establishes multiple items to help protect water rate payers who may have a hard time with the water rate increases. It established an Office of Water and Sewer Customer Advocacy Committee. It instituted the DeKalb Cares program, water shutoff protections for the vulnerable populations, including households with minors, minors under 18, seniors 62 years of age or older, disabled residents, and those just experiencing temporary hardships. So it was as well as some other protections, but it was very important for the commissioners to acknowledge that while we're having these conversations about increasing the water rates, that we understand that we may be placing a hardship on some vulnerable populations in our community. So we intentionally passed this resolution first, and this resolution passed unanimously. So this will take effect as the water rate increase takes effect, which was the next item on our agenda. And we did pass that item. It did not pass unanimously. It passed 5-2. But that is the 10. So it's a 10% increase every year for the next 10 years. That will generate roughly $450 million per year, or roughly 4.5 billion over the 10-year period. And so questions I've kind of heard and seen received is, well, what are you going to do with that money? Well, the intention of the additional money needed is to ensure that we are rehabbing and repairing critical infrastructure items when it comes to water and sanitary sewer, so that we can ensure that our existing residents are still receiving safe, clean drinking water, that we're reducing sanitary sewer overflows, and that we're meeting the requirements of our consent decree. And the reason why it's a 10-year plan, we also needed to tie it to a 10-year capital improvement project plan, to encompass all these projects needed that I just mentioned to fix the infrastructure. So we needed to be able to prove that we had 10 years worth of funding so that we can actually get these projects started and completed. So that's why it's a 10-year plan. Again, we understand that it was a hard decision, but it was very necessary for us to put these investments into our infrastructure for our residents, for our future and our current residents for many, many decades. We have, I think the news quoted me as saying, or it showed a clip of me saying that we've been kicking the can down the road for too long. And I think that's true. And that's not a dig on my immediate predecessors or even the last couple predecessors, but we have infrastructure in the ground that we have not touched since it got in the ground in the 1940s or the 1970s. So we really need to put an investment in there and take care of these issues. So we're no longer kicking the can down the road. The BOC did what they needed to do to make these investments in our infrastructure.
Understood. Yeah. And actually, I think you're safe. CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson said it herself that the can had been kicked down the road for a while. So I think
Yes.
everybody's
It's not,
kind of on that same wavelength,
yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole sins of our fathers sort of thing.
Exactly. And it's just, again, that's not a dig on any one in particular person, and it's not just a DeKalb County issue. I think we talked about this in the last podcast, but
Mhm.
it's worth bringing home again that too often our infrastructure, our pipes in the ground that you don't see, we kind of neglect it because we can't see it, out of sight, out of mind. And as far as we know, when we flush the toilet, it goes somewhere and we get some clean drinking water, and we don't think about it until something goes wrong and until a pipe busts or we get a sanitary sewer overflow, and then it becomes critical. So we have to be proactive in making sure we're doing everything we can to reduce the emergencies in the future.
Right. Right. It's not one of the sexier things that
It's
comes up
not
on the agenda. It's not a shiny new thing that you can see.
it's not a new library where we can get a good photo op with a shovel and a ribbon cutting. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Grateful we made that.
Say that again.
I'm just saying I am grateful that we made that collective decision and we're moving forward as a county.
Yeah. And for anyone who's interested, the capital improvement program is available on DeKalb County's website. That's DeKalbCounty.gov. You can find it there or just by Googling DeKalb County Capital Improvement Project. Additionally, we'll be putting links in the description below, and they should be flashing on the screen here for you so that you can find those pretty easily. That'll allow you to also check out the specific projects that are on the list to be done if you have any curiosity and want to look into that. There was another item that came up in budget, another exciting development. Um, the pay for police has been increased, as well as the benefits, because DeKalb has been known to have some retention issues, quite candidly. And so we wanted to make things better because our police officers work very hard in this county, and we want to attract more talent because we currently need, is it 300 new
Yeah,
officers, somewhere
I
around
think it's
there?
around 300 officer vacancies in the police department that we have. Yes,
Wow.
that's a
Yeah.
lot.
So we need to attract talent, and something that was approved in the budget was, of course, this pay increase and the um, so there's been a pay increase and benefits that have been increased as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in general, CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson presented us with her increased salary and benefits for the police officers, and she did it with finding and moving money around in the existing budget. So it was not an additional budget for us to have to consider. We did not have to go out and find additional funding for this. So that's always a win-win when you're approving a budget. Yeah. So the CEO, Lorraine Cochran Johnson, made a presentation before the BOC, and she presented to us this plan she has of retention and recruitment for our police officers. Like we were just saying, there's roughly 300 vacancies within our police department. And one of the main ways she plans on retaining as well as recruiting is to give about a 7% salary increase for majority of our existing officers, as well as increasing the starting salaries for new hires, and just increasing the benefit packages across the board and other incentives, like helping with paying for housing if they're staying within DeKalb County, and just trying to make a very robust enhancement plan um, for our officers. And so currently at this moment with this plan in place, I think we are one of the highest paid police departments in the metro area. What and this has kind of been an ongoing theme over the last few years, that one department will raise the bar, another department will raise the bar, and you have to keep adjusting because we're all fighting to get the same and to recruit the same officers. So currently, this plan I think will work for us, and we should be able to see more officers, which means more patrol, which should relate to lower crime within our neighborhoods, which is why that is ultimately why that's important to us. So no, other than approval of the budget, there was no real action item for the BOC other than just to say we're behind this and we support this, and anything we can do to support our first responders and our police department because they're doing such a critical job for us. And what we had been, since we were so far behind in our employment, they were working triple overtimes. So they were really
Mm,
working way too much. So, they do an amazing job. Our officers are, one of the best police forces in the world, but that just might be me being biased. Um, so we really need to make sure we're taking care of them.
yeah. Yeah, there's a totally different flavor to working overtime when you're running towards bullets versus working overtime at, kind of your typical 9 to 5. So,
Exactly. Behind the computer versus running towards bullets, right?
right, right. No way.
Exactly. So we appreciate them.
Indeed. Well,
Mhm.
that's great. That's great news. And hopefully that will help us attract and retain the talent that we have been looking for to help enhance the fine men and women in that department that we already have. Um, so, another thing that I know came up was the homestead exemption opt out. Um, can you tell us a little bit about that and help us kind of make sense of what was proposed there and why DeKalb County has decided to opt out?
Well, we did not actually opt out. So, and that was a little confusing. And the language put forward by the state legislature, it was on the referendum on the ballot in November for us to vote on, and that language was very, very hard to understand. Um, Personally, I think that was intentional, but that's beside the point. So the referendum passed, and so we had to either opt in or opt out by March 1st, I believe it was. And if we had chosen to opt out, we had to have essentially 3 public hearings or 3 informational sessions that had to be advertised in a certain way. So if we had so we had those 3 information sessions and public hearings, the last one being during the BOC meeting on February 25th. The CEO's office led the original 2 informational sessions and gave a lot of great information about the process and what is behind the House Bill 581. So we had the hearing for the option of opting out again on our marathon meeting of February 25th. That was one of the many things we did that day. But ultimately, we decided that the BOC decided that the best option for DeKalb County was actually to opt in. And to opt in, we just needed to not actually do anything. So even though we posted these hearings to opt out, with if the decision had been to opt out, we had to go through this process, right? Because that's what the legislature said. You had to do these certain steps. So us and other municipalities and other counties were going through the same exercise at the same time. And it was a little confusing because it looked like we were opting out, but ultimately we chose to opt in. And the reason why I know I decided that opting in was the best option. Um, if, for instance, we are not allowed to renew our existing homestead exemption that predates what is put forward in the House bill. I think our homestead exemption puts our our home values at a rate that was established in 2006 if you have been a homeowner in DeKalb County for that long. And the new House bill, it sets the homestead exemption rate to a 2024 standard. So that's a big difference in house
Oh, wow.
values. So if by opting in, if we if when our current homestead exemptions expire, we would at least still have a fallback to these 2024 rates. If we had opted out, we would not have had that as a fallback in the event
Okay.
that our current homestead exemptions are expire, and they are set to expire, I think in about 5 years, if I remember correctly. Um, and there's some other caveats in there with a cap on how much we can tax, like how many sales taxes we can have, which is something that the legislature is still working to fix for DeKalb County, because we have our SPLOS, we have our e-host, we have our MARTA, we have Grady, we have all these sales taxes that go to certain things, and inadvertently we have more than the cap that they have put in this bill. So there'll still be some talk on this House bill and fixing it so that we can have a SPLOS 3 when we're at the end of our SPLOS 2, which is critical because our SPLOS dollars are some of the biggest money we have to put into our infrastructure. And other surrounding counties have been doing SPLOS since they started in the 1980s, and we're just in our second SPLOS. So again, when we're talking about investments in our infrastructure and not kicking the can down the road, we need to make sure we have a way to keep our SPLOS, as well as our e-host, which helps equalize taxes for our homestead exemptions.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
probably confusing and a lot, but yeah.
it's all good information that we need, especially homeowners who may have been confused by those announcements. So that was, it's good to explain
So
that.
I will bottom line it by opting in. Essentially, you will get the same homestead exemptions that you've always been getting. I think bottom line.
Okay. I think that that's something that people will be happy to hear.
Yeah.
They just don't want it to go up, but you know,
Ex-
inevitably that's probably going to happen. But now I
yeah.
understand why you guys opted out.
Yes. Opted in.
Opted in.
We
Opted
opted in,
in.
not out.
That's right. Correction there. All right. Let's see here. So, in the upcoming month, I know that there's a couple of things, fun things that we're going to discuss here. But as far as agenda items are concerned, is there anything else coming up that people should be aware of? Any big decisions, especially now since you have the budget and the water decisions uh, behind you? Is there anything coming up that you can think of that is kind of also a major announcement?
Yeah. So we haven't touched on that too much in the podcast, but tied with the water rate increases and why we needed to be generating a certain amount of money is so that we can go after a bond to pay for the infrastructure work that needs to be completed. So once we approve the water rate increase, it also triggered an exercise to go out and fund this bond. So there's a really short time frame of when the bond will come back to us, which I think is in early April. We'll have a very short amount of time to take action on the bond. That's how the financing world works with bonds, as I'm told. And so you'll definitely see that item come up, but it is you'll see that it's the amount that we've been talking about to fund all the 10-year plan, the 10 by 10 plan, and fund all that work. So that's one item that will be coming up. PWI, we are working to approve a stormwater master plan, another infrastructure item that has been ignored for years. So the master plan kind of will give us some key points on areas that we need to focus on and how to improve those. That most of this work is either going to be paid for by some general fund, by some SPOS money, but you also see a stormwater assessment fee on your property tax bill, and that stormwater assessment fee goes to stormwater projects. So all those things will help pay for that, as well as the county will look for any additional bonds or loans or grants that we can obtain to help pay for these items. And then, like I said before, we will probably see an update on a budget. We should be getting the quarterly budget update, financial status update from the administration's office. But it should be a little calmer. We shouldn't have a whole lot of hot button items coming up in the next month. Later in spring, we will be talking about millage rate and property assessment. So that will be a big item, but that should be more towards May.
Good to know. And for anyone who is interested, if you follow Commissioner Johnson on her social media pages, more information will be made available there as it is available to us. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting towards the end of our time here. Couple of items that I wanted to bring up, just a couple of fun things that may not have anything to do with the month of February. There is the DeKalb Green New Deal Festival, even though it's not an event that our district specifically is putting on. It's in conjunction with, I think Ted Terry Commissioner Ted Deary spearheaded
Right.
that. So I do want to encourage everyone to come out to that. Go ahead and show a flyer here.
Yes, Commissioner Ted Terry, of course, he is our Green New Deal commissioner. Commissioner Ted Terry is leading the charge on this DeKalb Concert for Climate Justice. The concert will be held Saturday, April 5th at Porter Sanford in conjunction with Jay Fly and his Jay Fly and friends. And I believe the headliner I've seen is Avery Sunshine. Even though Commissioner Ted Terry is leading this, he has gotten support and financial backing from all of the commissioners. You'll see all of us there on the tagline towards the bottom. So I will be there. Apparently, I get to go on stage for a brief moment and say a couple words.
Nice.
So I hope to see everybody there. Yes. So it should be a fun evening. It's a fun event. Looking forward to it.
You gonna sing anything while you're up there?
Oh no, you don't want me to sing. Nobody wants that.
I don't know. Some people might. Singing commissioner could be a new thing.
Might scare some people away.
Oh, and then of course, even though it is not until April, it is never too early to be plugging our own event here. And that is, I will let you introduce this. If I could just get my screen to cooperate, please.
Right, it's not moving.
There we go. Okay.
Yes. So we are excited to have our first quarterly breakfast meeting. We're calling this Community Connections. Our first one will be held April 12th at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at East Central DeKalb Community and Senior Center. And our main speaker for the day will be Ms. Maria Hauser. We'll continue to talk about the water rate increases and just in general infrastructure in DeKalb County. Make sure we're can talk about our consent decree, and we'll have other department heads there. We'll have a time for questions and answer session, and of course, we will be feeding you. So I hope to see everybody there. I think you have received emails previously letting you know to save the date. And that is the purpose of those emails, just getting that on your radar so that you know to join us on April 12th.
Indeed. Breakfast.
Yeah.
Breakfast will be served.
Free breakfast.
Free breakfast. Free good breakfast at that.
Yeah. It sounds like it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I attended Bradshaw's quarterly and the fourth breakfast quite often and always found it informational. So I wanted to make sure we continued it under my tenure, and I'm excited to be bringing the first one to the community.
Yeah, it'll have a different flavor, but it will still be beneficial to the constituents.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that just about does it for us. My screen is not behaving today. Okay.
Retrograde. You got to look it up.
I apparently do need to, and then be aware going forward. Although there is one more thing that people should be aware of. Perhaps you don't use the I-285, I-20 interchange every day, but if you do head that way, there are some major changes going on there. They shifted the lanes to allow them to continue construction in this area. So do be mindful of that. I have a link to GDOT's page where you can follow project updates. If that could impact your travel, you can check it out there. All right.
Very critical in our area and for us who commute to work every day.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you want to follow Chakira, please do so on her social media. I'll let Chakira tell you a little bit more about how to contact her in the event that you should need to, and where to follow her.
Yes. So if you need to contact me, and I hope you do, if you ever have any needs or questions, please email me at cjjohnson2, the number 2, at DeKalbCounty.gov. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under the handle at Commissioner Chakira Johnson, or on Blue Sky or X, or Twitter, as I still call it, at Commissioner CJJ. Please also consider subscribing to the YouTube channel here. If you do find this podcast helpful, if you want to know whenever a new podcast is released, just remember to hit the bell icon so you can receive these notifications in the future. And again, I just appreciate everyone tuning in, and we look forward to our next episode.
Indeed. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for joining us here. We hope that you have found this information useful. And I hope that you will join us for the next podcast coming out in April to cover the month of March. And until then, we hope you stay safe, happy, and healthy out there, and have a good rest of your week or day or whenever you're watching this.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.